Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to the Community Health Show on Revive FM. We are live today to talk about issues relating to health. This is a follow-on from the Ramadan radio show that I used to hold every Ramadan. But as you can see, we're in a new studio. We are in Revive FM. The studio number is 0333 444 0940, and we are live on Facebook Live, and the website is revivefm.co.uk. Feel free to listen in and call in on the studio. Today we're going to be talking about end-of-life care and bereavement. And first and foremost, I would like to dedicate this show to one of our Da'i brothers who was part of the institution in the Idara, Nisa Ahmed Dar, who recently passed away. He was a very active member in this masjid and Idara. We all do miss him very dearly. The show is to do with illness, terminal illness and bereavement, and this is a special opportunity for us to remember him in the positive contributions that he made. So this show is going out live, and it's dedicated to Muhammad Nisa Ahmed Dar. Jazakallah khairan. So today's subject is end-of-life care and bereavement. We have two very special guests in the studio. I'd like to introduce you to them both. We have Hasina Zaman from Compassionate Funerals. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
And Abu Mu'min, founder of Eden Care. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
I just wanted to ask each of you just to give us a brief background about what you do in terms of your previous background, and we'll dive into the subject matter. Hasina, tell us a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so Assalamu alaikum everybody. So my background is I'm Bangladeshi Muslim. I've been in the UK since 1973. Originally, I lived in Tower Hamlets. That's where I had my secondary education. And then my parents moved to Forest Gate, just around the corner from here. And I lived there till my mid-20s. And I live not so far from here. I live just in Manor Park now. In terms of what else could I say? So I was formerly a teacher, a lecturer, mainly at Tower Hamlets College. And then I went to do secondary teaching at adult education. And I have 4 amazing children who often give me a hard time. I'm also in the process of being a grandparent. But yeah, alhamdulillah. So it's all exciting, lots of things going on. What else could I say about myself? I have to say, as I have come to this time in my life, it's really important to live in the present and to be in an optimal state, even when we're really, really challenged. And when we're challenged, I have really come to this practice of just being alhamdulillah for everything that is going on.
Jazakallah khairan. Welcome to the show. I'm sure we'll get a lot of insight from you in terms of what we discuss around the funeral industry and bereavement. So thank you for coming to the show. Abu Mu'min, welcome.
Thank you.
A familiar face in some quarters. You're also a local lad, are you not?
Well, yes, I live in Newham. Mm-hmm. I've been living here since 1992. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, I still live in Tower Hamlets. A bit about me, I was a youth worker, did many years of youth work around gang mediation, conflict resolution. I'm a social worker as well, and I've done international social work studies, and I was one of the key people to develop the Usmani Center development. It was 4.8 million, one of the largest BME organizations in East London. And then I've moved on to developing an organization called Eden Care, part of 13 Rivers Trust family. And we'll talk about what we've done about that later on. But in terms of, I like Hasina, I have 4 beautiful children, very strong-headed, some of them. One of them, inshallah, is going to be getting married soon. Allahu Akbar. I'm getting a bit jittery, that my daughter's going to be leaving after so many years. And as a father, it's quite emotional. I love traveling, and I do lots of sports, a lot of community engagement activities. That's a little bit about me, inshallah.
Okay, we'll touch upon your community stuff also. I'm very keen to mention some of that. Hasina, you are one of the few female chief executive officers for a organisation called Compassionate Funerals, which is a organisation that fulfills the need of providing aftercare support and funeral and burial services. Am I right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit more about Compassionate Funerals.
So I set up Compassionate Funerals in 2012, the Olympic year, partly from looking at a gap and a need that was required within the community, where funerals were very much becoming a conveyor belt experience, and people weren't having engaging and creative, and it wasn't a heartfelt experience. So we put together a service. Well, I actually founded the company and started the service from then. And then we've just grown as a team. We have our own premises, we have a fleet of staff, and we're just growing and growing.
I know for a fact that you've come a long way in a very short space of time, and it's really, really good that you've managed to do that. It's really fit, says what it does on the tin. It fulfills a need, and a quite niche need, I would believe. Some of the stuff that you're doing is quite bespoke in terms of tailoring funeral and bereavement needs for particular communities, not just Muslim communities.
That's correct, yeah, for the whole community, as well as the secular community, the faith communities, particularly with the Roman Catholic Church of England, the Buddhist communities. And I forgot to mention, so the reason why we're called Compassionate Funerals is that we just felt, from the verse Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, the word Rahman is such a strong emphasis, such a strong virtue and value to live by. So that's where the influence came from, that we wanted to be compassionate in ourselves. And if we're compassionate to ourselves, we have no choice but to be compassionate to, to everyone around us. And that's inclusive, obviously, towards the bereaved clients and families, and the deceased, the people who've passed away. Yeah.
MashaAllah, that's really good. Abu Mu'min, you've founded Eden Care in 2013, and you've managed to do year-on-year stuff, improve a lot of the services. You've fine-tuned a lot of your work. I can see that quite clearly. Tell us a bit about the core values of Eden Care. What is your vision for Eden Care?
Well, before that, I just want to start with my own story.
Sure.
Unlike others, I had no interest in end-of-life work. I had no interest in burial. I actually would stay away from burial. It's something was scary.
Yeah.
I haven't had anybody close to me die. The first person who started falling ill, and that's the first time I'm, as a person, seeing terminal ill people, it was my mother. She was terminally ill for 15 years, so you can imagine all the appointments, all the people. She was hospitalized many times. The doctors have offered her palliative care. They said she had 6 months to live. Your mother is, for me, my mother is the closest thing. Yeah, she was always there. Unconditional love and unconditional discipline, But when she died and I was watching her, first time I was watching her and she was dying. And this is from, when the soul leaves, I was watching from 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and the pain that she was in. And I, as a son, couldn't do anything. at that moment, apart from recite a few verses of the Quran.
Yeah.
That was the time Abu Mumin wasn't going to be with Usmani Center anymore. That was the time that meant what I saw my mum go through. She's a very dignified woman. The Barts and Royal London Hospital staff members in front of me told my mother to take her full clothing off. Male nurses, that she needed a wash. And they were nurses. I felt that something needs to be done because there were a lot of Muslims. And there were also non-Muslims, but the care had to be done in a dignified way. So in 2013, that's the year my mother died. That's the year we set up Eating Care. That's the year after 12 years I left Usmani Trust. I loved working with young people and gang mediation and working with young people in the care system.
So what did you aspire to do? What was your vision with Eden Care? What did you want to
We wanted to give
do about that?
We wanted to give a voice to a community.
Yeah.
Let's say at that time it was Tower Hamlets. My mum was registered in Tower Hamlets. She lived with me. Over 50% of the population are Muslims. Yet again, the NHS and the authorities were not enforcing Muslim-friendly care provisions. It was very hard. We needed respite. Imagine 15 years of, we needed mum to have respite, to go to women's club. No, she wasn't dead. She was alive. She needed to do things, but there wasn't hardly anything. Because unfortunately with the Muslims, we take interest in deluxe burial, but we do not take interest in end of life.
No.
We don't take interest in bereavement. People lose their loved ones, how it impacts them. I'd rather take a punch in the face as opposed to the emotional, the emotion I'm having to go through. So Eating Care's core value is to provide friendship and advocacy support. And we've helped a lot of people since the time. It wasn't just burial, the end of life. Even we've now started the art therapy. And so
we're fast forwarding a bit.
Yeah.
We will come on to that.
Yeah.
What you just recounted in terms of your personal experience, it hits us all. I imagine it hits us all in a number of different ways, including myself. And I felt it would be an injustice if we didn't touch on this subject. I know it's our very first show, and Ramadan, we like to ease into things and we kind of accelerate in terms of our iman and our God consciousness, taqwa. But this is a time to focus on why we exist, why we are on this earth. One of the things that I read, I don't know whether it was from you or somebody, this was a quote, and it says, "Be kind while you are on the ground if you want the ground to be kind to you when you are in it," i.e. the grave. So this is a fundamental aspect of our deen, our Islam. We have to accept we are here for an appointed time, and it's what we do in that appointed time to prepare ourselves for our death. I think all of us, we like to skirt around this subject, and I was adamant that I want to talk about something like this very early on to focus our minds around the notion of death, and we need to be prepared for it. What better time to prepare for your death than the month of Ramadan, because we are looking introspectively into ourselves and to see what is it about ourselves, where are our deficiencies, are we not wondering, are we just sleepwalking our way along with our life, and lo and behold one day we will meet our Creator. So it's important, you both must agree with this, and you're both in this industry for a particular reason, is to make our communities aware, particularly the Muslim community, in terms of what it is out there, what's available, people can come to you both for advice and guidance and support and planning their funeral, planning their bereavement. This is what it's all about. People need to understand you cannot afford to dismiss this subject and to say, oh, when it comes, it comes. I'm nowhere near to dying yet. But we see what society has created. Death is literally around the corner for most of us. We see knife crime, we see all youngsters. You come from a background in terms of gang mediation, you must have seen it, how harsh it is on the streets. Our youngsters are pretty much putting themselves out there in terms of risking their lives, and also through people who have got health conditions, which is why we focus around health in Ramadan in terms of terminal illnesses as well. So Hasina, what do you feel around that in terms of what funeral care services, compassionate funerals provide? How do you gear your services up to meeting those kind of wide spectrum of needs?
I mean, what I would like to just touch on is that, we are in the month of Ramadan. This is a month of inter-reflection and going back into who we are. And if we're not doing that, we must make time for that, whether it's at Asr. For me, I do it Asr and at Fajr time, because that's when I feel Asr I'm really, really exhausted and I just can't, so I have to, I submit to everything because I can't physically carry on. So for me, it's a really a good time to sort of just go into myself. So, we all need to find some time in the day, in this blessed month, to do that and to ask our question, to ask ourselves, what is our soul's journey? What is our purpose? Are we living our purpose? Because if you're living your purpose, then life is easy. And if we're not living our purpose, then life is a struggle. And if we are in a struggle, then we have to ask ourselves, because I actually believe that Allah wants it easy for us. Even, deaths, there are different types of death, which I will come on to. So we are really in this blessed month, and it's really important. I regularly, I don't know why, when it comes to Ramadan at Fajr time, I remember all of those people who have passed away in my family and my friends. Before I started Compassionate Funerals, the person who was doing our website, she asked me to write down a list of all the people that have passed away. Up until then, the count was 45 people. I'd experienced 45 bereavements, which I hadn't even clocked. And I was just like I was absolutely like gobsmacked, thinking like, how has this happened? I have to say that 20 of them are families in Bangladesh. And that really saddens me, because like here, when you hear of a funeral, you think, okay, I'm going to make the intention to go. 2 weeks ago, a friend of my friend's father died. So I was fortunate to go to the janazah. But then, this whole thing that when family pass away abroad, and you think, well, like, what's going on? I'm not part of it. I feel missed out. I feel like I don't know what happened. I don't know the picture. I
feel cut out.
Yeah, I feel completely. Process. So the whole bereavement, it goes into, I would call a state of, into a state of being frozen. So that's one area. That's just a very personal thing that for me. But in terms of compassionate funeral, so we deal with a whole selection of different types of deaths from terminal illness. I would have to say also, but people who die from terminal illness, even that, families really, really find it difficult, because they said they just die suddenly, and yet they may have had a number of conditions that led up to their death. So that's one side. The other side is when somebody dies suddenly, whether that's from, they just died from a heart attack, unknown condition, or unknown symptoms they've had. So the sudden death, when someone dies from a sudden death, that's got quite a few complications from a legal perspective, because it always goes to the coroner. But also in terms of bereavement, the family, the level of grief and emotional distress somebody goes through is so extreme. And it's about how do we, so our core focus is that how do we support them just through those couple of days, whether it be weeks or, sometimes it could be months, because the body's not being released. So for us, it's about, I think what it is that I'm realizing we're becoming like technical experts, as opposed to sometimes being out there in the community, because of the information and level of technical content that we have to process and put together for the funeral. I have to say that we did have the fortunate opportunity to speak to work with Eden Care, during
Okay.
the Grenfell.
I want to hold you on that
Okay.
one. We'll come on to Grenfell because there's a particular reason why I want to focus our minds around a number of aspects, including Grenfell. It's very vital we touch on it, but we give it its necessary credence. So that's good. In terms of Eden Care, what services are there for people in terms of what you offer?
Okay.
I'm just trying to get people to understand what each of you
With
provide.
Eden Care, what we do is the first service that we've set up was, we call it the end of life support in the form of befriending and advocacy.
Yes.
So if there is someone out there who doesn't have strong family or friends support, what we do, Eden Care, we have befrienders who are vetted and trained, and meaning they are DBS checked, and they are supported. They are the ones who go and regularly visit this person, sometimes in a group if there are safeguarding issues, and sometimes individually. And we give them 3 wish lists.
Okay.
So the 3 wish lists could be, what would you want from us? So imagine they don't get no visit. They're in hospitals, they got terminal illness, and they're lonely. So we give them 3 wish lists. It could be, I don't have anyone, please organize my burial. It could be, I don't have anyone, please come and visit me. Or the third one is, when I was young, I used to walk to Stratford. They are dear memories to me. Can you please facilitate a wheelchair or something and take me to Stratford?
Wow.
It's as simple as that. Or it could be, I got into an argument with my son 20 years ago, and I really miss my son. I want to see him one last time because they're terminally ill. We facilitated that, quite a lot of it actually.
But you're still doing that gang work, but with people. so your work hasn't left you.
So there's an element of mediation. Then from that wish list, we found a lot of reverts coming to us and saying, I'm the only I'm the only Muslim in the family. Please organize my burial. So what we've done, we've set up the Muslim Burial Fund from Eden Care. It wasn't something that we initially planned because of the request. So we set up the Muslim Burial Fund inspired by my brother Peter Chatfield.
Yes.
And he was one of the first person who took that service because he didn't have anyone who was a Muslim in the family, although he had lots of Muslims visiting him. So we coordinated, and I personally, that was my first ever washing. I never thought in 100 years I'll be washing a dead body. And the experience was very spiritual, I have to say.
Really?
I have to say to everyone, you should try it.
It wasn't scary.
It wasn't scary. It was spiritual. And to know that you love someone and to know that you're preparing their body and you're washing them, and the next time that they're going to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you feel...
day of resurrection.
Yeah, you feel really good. You feel very good. And you're gently washing.
Is there any blessing in doing? I know next of kin are the ones that are asked to do that for their deceased parent, mother or daughter, mother or father, and it's one of those things. It's like to lead the janazah prayer. It's the son is asked to perform the prayer. Similarly, when it comes to washing the body, is it something that's permissible for the next of kin to?
I don't know if it's sunnah, but I do know that it's advisable to have at least wash at least two bodies, at least 2 for every Muslim. I don't know if it's sunnah, but this is what I've been told. But in our one lifetime, we should at least wash at least 2 people. Yeah.
They have to be bodies that are related to us.
They don't have to be related. Like I mean, obviously from a professional point of view, I've watched lots now. But before, it's just that I was when my mother-in-law died, I really was interested in learning how to do the ghusl. And in fact, I could not actually do the ghusl because I was not I just had a baby, my second child. So although I wasn't physically in the state to do it, but I could actually instruct the other women what to do.
Okay.
So, and then they, you know, it's like what Abdul Malik just said, is that it makes you feel like very, very elated, that you feel like you're doing something special because of the level of reverence. And it's a deeply experienced, deeply moving act that you can do, not for that person, but for yourself, actually. You know, because that one day someone's going to be washing us, someone's going to be washing me, and I want them to, you know, to do it with love, not like to rush it through, you know, like some people do. So yeah.
I would say there's immense blessing, reward in taking part in washing of the deceased. You're fulfilling obligation and duties and responsibilities. Of course, it should be the first priorities are with the families, the next of kin. Of course, there should be male washing male, female washing female. There are these rules that needs to be observed. Whereas in the case of, let's say, Eden Care clients, they don't have anyone, and we most of the time do the washing.
Sure.
On behalf of, we carry out the burial on behalf of the Muslim community. So that's the second service, the Muslim Burial Fund. The third service is we've launched the National Legal Burial Support for Muslim reverts. Since doing this, we've come across a number of reverts, and unfortunately about 24 of them, they're Muslims and they got cremated or Christian burial, or at times we did the janaza in the chapel and then they had the Christian burial. So what Eden Care is doing is providing a free legal service for reverts, Muslim reverts. If they do this piece of paper, basically that prevents them from having cremation or Christian burial, and they can also put their name down on a national burial register.
Okay.
So that's a third service, and a fourth one is art therapy we just launched. This is where in hospitals it's all about needles, and care homes it's all about those different things. So what we're trying to do is add value by sending artists to do workshop with those patients and terminally ill people. Of course, we're doing it in partnership with the care homes and the hospital. And the last one is campaigns and awareness, because what I'm going to tell you this, according to Hospice UK 2016 report, there's going to be 250,000 Muslims over the age of 65. Now that's a huge number. So we're going to, as a community, the second and third generation, we're going to experience a lot more death and burial and end of life issues. We as a community, we're not awake yet.
I know.
So in terms of, let me just give you some examples. With that data, what's going to happen to these elderly people? We're investing in our sons and daughters to go to schools and universities, have a career. When they have a career and suddenly you fall ill, are they going to give up their career to look after you? Yeah. We need to think about care.
Absolutely.
Do we have enough care homes? Are the mainstream trying to accommodate the cultural sensitivities? I went to St. Joseph's only 5 days ago, and they had beautiful music playing. It's so spiritual, but you got a Muslim person who is dying. What should be played at that time for that person? Quran, not music. Yeah, I'm just saying Muslim friendly policies.
Okay, on the subject of UK hospices, there is a pertinent question that I need to pose to yourselves, including the community, and we will come on to that, because hospices are another facet of end-of-life care which I think Muslim communities haven't fully explored, and it's down to Eden Care, it's down to Compassionate Funerals to propagate that message. I think there's some mileage in terms of the discussion we need to have around what hospices provide. What you've touched on is culturally appropriate settings. So we need to come together as a community and put forward our views around that. And I believe we have room for consultation on this matter. And I think there's a lot of things that we can discuss. We've got 2 hours on this show, and it's simply not enough time to give it justice. You must agree on this. We could talk about end of life care and bereavement for until the cows come home. But we're only skimming the surface today. But hopefully at the end of the show, people will go away and it will start sinking in. I need to remind everybody, you're listening to Revive FM. The studio number is 0333 444 0940. You can text in your questions on 07851 391 365. We're on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and also on web, revivefm.co.uk. I would really appreciate some calls coming in. I'm hoping that Maulana Yunus Dudwala from Barts Health will be calling in anytime soon. He's the head of bereavement, and he's been on this show on a number of occasions talking about Ramadan and health, but he's also heads up bereavement in Barts Health. We were good to hear from him in terms of his insight in terms of what's happening on the ground in the acute setting in hospitals when people come in with terminal illnesses. So look forward to his call. So in terms of, we just touched on this issue around key issues facing our communities. One of the questions that I needed to pose to both of you was, why is it important for bereaved families to be involved in the funeral process? One of the things that we've touched upon is washing the body. That's a very clear way of being involved. But more fully, in terms of what do you think we could do to make it more inclusive in terms of getting families to be part and parcel of somebody's funeral? Because what happens is you're in a state of shock. You don't really know what to do. There's this overwhelming kind of burden on getting a death certificate, getting the coroner to sign off that the reasons for death. We do not want to delay our beloved in terms of burying him or her, whether it's in this country, whether it's abroad. There's a lot of things that need to be done in a very short space of time, and that can be overwhelming. I personally found it very overwhelming when it came to my father when he died, because it was, we've come a long way in this industry, but back 20, 30 years ago, things were a lot slower and things needed to be done in a particular way. But now we have established kind of pathways in terms of dealing with some of these issues. What do you say about this in terms of the involvement of bereaved families, Abu Mumin?
Can I shoot off? Yeah. I'd love to. So it starts before death. Okay, this starts with conversation. So I would I would really, really encourage families to have conversations within the family. They don't have to be full on, and people may be frightened and say, look, I don't want you to talk about it, because there's all this scaremongering that if you talk about it, if we talked about the amount of we talk about it in our work, we'd be dead many times. So there's that. So I would say, start having the conversation, even if you're a carer or you're a part-time carer and looking after your family member who's got some form of illness. Start talking about it. Mm-hmm. Ask them, look, what do you want to happen? Well, we know what's going to happen in the Muslim sector. So that's the first stage. So, start the conversation early on. Have the conversation when you're healthy as well. You don't have to wait for illnesses. So you're starting from a point of strength, not from a point of weakness. And then once death does take place, I would say that we have noticed that when families are fully engaged, however painful it is, that there is very, very cathartic and healing. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you're hands off, what it is something that you're not getting involved in, is because there's a level of scarcity or fear that's going on in you that you're not dealing with. And how do you get involved? Obviously, as professionals, it is our job, it is our responsibility to make sure people are guided and cared for sensitively and with compassion, with kindness, that things are explained in fully, and take time when you're explaining to the family. I would say that with all funeral directors, all people working with bereaved. Because what it is that, and allow the other person just to, we did a funeral for the Sheikh of Nigeria in the summer, and when he passed away, he had about 50 members of staff, 50 members of his personal family, and another entourage of his support team here. And other Muslim people from this UK said, let's stop the women from crying, because this is not right what they're doing. They were crying, they were wailing. I said, you know what? There is a point. The thing is, we have not been made humanly impossible to cry continuously. We will stop. And so and I would just say, just let people cry. Let people experience their feelings. If you feel sad, if you feel heartbroken, you cry. Okay, it is quite devastating when you see someone really, really screaming, because it's not good for them. Then you have to sort of calm them down. So I would say, from a bereavement point of view, allow people to experience their experience. Can
I just butt in?
Yeah.
Just on this issue, it's a very important issue. That people get it wrong. There is a balance about when to cry and how much. Well, Prophet ﷺ was coming back from Mecca, and he stood, and there was 10,000 Muslims behind him who went to the opening of Mecca. Now, basically, he looked at this place and he started crying, and he cried, and it's one of those instances that you could see his back tooth, and the Sahabas were asking, "Why are you crying, Prophet ﷺ?" And he turned around and said, "That is the grave of my mother." That's evidence, and there's other evidences when he lost his son, him crying. If we suppress, these have really a negative impact.
Long-term trauma.
People need to cry. They need to also be part of the whole burial process.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to come to that. So again, what funerals are getting to a point where it's becoming leave it to the professionals, let them all deal with it. Whereas we encourage maximum involvement, and with like you said, with the washing, with the dressing, with the shrouding, even putting somebody in the coffin. If they've got the shroom to do that, we think, yeah, you should do that, because it's the next step. And then the actual burial itself, be involved with the burial as much as possible you can. There are responsibilities of male members of the family to be significant, have their significant roles. So it comes back to my point, is that it's about empowerment. It's about saying that you're part of this community, you're part of this family, and fully engage with it. Get your hands dirty, as in don't be scared. This is someone you love. Why would you want to shy away? I'm not saying people aren't going to have emotional all sorts of experiences like denial, blame, anger. Anger is a big one that we see, where you just and then again I say, really, really experience those emotions, because when we can truly experience negative emotion, we come out the other side. Again, it's healing. It's just amazing, because then you can carry on doing what you're meant to be doing.
What I have to say about this particular point is how our terminology tends to change, particularly Bengalis. We use this word lash, which means the body, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We almost automatically switch into not calling that person our dad or our mum. We say, lash tare ghusl khurani lagbo. We need to wash this body. We almost instantaneously change our thinking when it comes to why is that?
It's not just Bengali. It's in the medical profession.
I know it
in the medical profession. When we repatriate, it doesn't even get called lash or body. It becomes the coffin. Yeah. They become even like a furniture. I just think. So this whole thing, again, we say when the person passes away, we actually call them by Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so, yes. Or we call them by and we actually ask the family, so what would you like us to refer your loved one to? And then they say, can you call them Ken or Adam or, whatever. And then that's how we refer to them. And this is quite a new thing. It's not, and again, there's a whole load of terminology is when someone dies. Somebody in Bangladesh I was speaking to, they said, someone expired. I haven't heard that word for ages. And I think, whoa, it's is it food, or milk to someone like
sell-by
date. And I thought, it's so interesting. People use words like that, but they won't use words like death or dying or dead, because we are so uncomfortable. And it's not a Bengali thing. It's not a Bengali thing. It's universal. Okay. And there's also real cultural constructs of it being created, and it's to do with consumerism and capitalism. But I won't go into that.
Can I also give you another perspective to that? It's very deep spiritual discussion. If you really think about it. So, for example, the real you is your ruh. Yeah. And then the other you is the body.
Yes.
What happens when you have the ruh and the body separation? The rule changes. The rule changes in many ways. So, for example, husband and wife relationship, that's gone, finished, because the person has passed away, male or female. The person is no longer alive. And from a theological point of view, from an Islamic theological point of view, when the ruh leaves, you see a sudden rush by the family members to get the death letter, to get the green form, to have the burial.
Yes.
In between all of that, it is our responsibility to ensure that everybody is involved with the whole process, especially the loved one of that person who passed away.
Yeah.
From all sorts of point of view, and one of them being bereavement, because if some people are, you can clearly see, Hasima, I'm sure, when somebody loses a loved one, they're in a state of shock.
Yes, they are.
And it's like, it's difficult to describe that shock. It's like somebody who's had, a state of, they got drunk.
It's numbness.
And it's numbness.
It's numbness.
Yes, it's numbness.
It absolutely is.
Yeah. And you got to help them to go through that process. And there needs to be somebody who needs to help the family. And within our tradition, we have, supporting the families with food and, going there so that they are not burdened with trivial things.
I'm going to come on to the customs associated with the whole process of departure in terms of what happens as an ongoing kind of like a timeline between the time you realize somebody's dying, when he or she has passed away, and what happens afterwards up until the point of burial and then ongoing. Because bereavement is a timeline. Death is a fixed appointed time until the body's been buried. Bereavement can continue. Like you say, Abdul Malik, bereavement is something unique to everybody. We all experience bereavement in a different way. It's a loss, and that loss needs about an amount of time to come to terms with it. Some people deflect bereavement and immerse themselves into their day-to-day lives, and kind of like, it's almost like we want to put that to one side. We don't want to contend with the whole notion of bereavement.
But it never gets dealt with.
Exactly.
And that's the risk, and that is the danger.
So my next question is, how do we go about planning for death and end-of-life care with those diagnosed with terminal illness? Because with terminal illness, there is a bit of time provided to loved ones to actually come to terms with the fact that somebody very close to their heart is on that road to passing away. How do Eden Care come in on things like that? Compassionate funerals, obviously, you both have a view on it. What do we do to equip our families to come to terms with, not only one, they're going to lose somebody, but number two, it's going to be a bit sudden. We don't entirely know when it's going to happen. With terminal illnesses, it can be a prolonged death, and it's sustaining the kind of people's energy levels in terms of the coping strategies that are needed. that doesn't come from within. It comes from other people rallying around and Heed and Care and Compassionate Funerals coming in to offer that support and guidance. What do you say about this?
It needs to be done very delicately,
Yes.
sensitively, and it's case by case. Every family, every individual is different.
Yes.
Some people, like Peter Chatfield, Pascal Martin, they embraced it, they welcomed, and they lived day by day. So they enjoyed that day, knowing that tomorrow might not come, and they lived for 6 months. Peter, Pascal Martin lived for over 2 years. Now, but there's certain things that needs to be get done. They must be sorted out, like the will.
Yes.
If you got assets, and then there's a hadith, Prophet ﷺ said, do not let 2 days pass without taking a will. I think everybody who's of good health or ill health should do the will. It really prevents a lot of conflict and complications.
It goes back to what I was saying about putting things off, isn't it? This is just yet another thing.
Because there's a lot of fallacy. Again, a lot of people think that if you write a will, that you're going to will your death. There's a lot of, honestly, it is such a strong mindset, opinion, that when people, the reason why I work with lots of will writers, the reason why a lot of people will not sign, they might even go through the process, it takes about 3-4 hours to write your will out, but they won't sign it because they feel that there's this, misconception that if you write your will, that somehow you're going to,
sealed.
that you're going to, invite your death.
Well, let me tell you,
it shouldn't be. The will
No, it shouldn't be.
Something which is very fluid and can change over time. But the
absolutely.
important thing is to get it done.
But I would say, in addition to what Abu Momin said, is that in terms of planning, so if someone's going to be buried in a particular place, ask them, do you want to be buried in the same cemetery? Simple acts like that. That when you, who is there anyone particular that you want to, to do the washing? Is there anything particular you want? Is there any particular prayers that you want? I know there are going to be obviously the obligatory prayers, the janazah that gets done, but there are like little things that you could do. Like, for example, we offer children to come and spend time, before the janazah with their parent, and that just spend time, even 2 hours, 3 hours, just alone time, because often they don't get that chance at the mosque. It just becomes a very, very a community experience, because that's the way funerals are within the Muslim experience. So it's just like what a woman said, every single family, every single person who's passing away is very, very different. And I would say is to separate, death is one thing and bereavement is another thing. And so often when the funeral is going through the process and the funeral gets done, the burial happens, then people start to experience, different emotions, different states of bereavement. And then, that's when a lot of support is required. And I would say, even with our work, is that there's a real gap in that, because we look after somebody, say they come to our care 1 week, sometimes 2 days. 2 weeks usually is the longest time we have somebody in terms of the bereaved family. But after that, we just don't know what happens to people.
Can I say, in terms of, we've lost 24 people to cremation and Christian burial because they didn't have a will service.
Yes.
And with the Muslims generally who don't leave behind the will, what happens is there's conflict within the family. In terms of bereavement, I don't know many organizations out there who are supporting mothers who lose their children at early stages of the pregnancy. I know there are a few that are emerging, but what I will always ask is, the mainstream has these resources. What are they doing to put resources in to have Muslim-friendly bereavement support services? I'll give you an example. We talked about hospices. St. Joseph's Hospice is huge. Its annual turnover is 17 18 million pound a year. Now, Muslims don't want to go to a place to die, the hospice. Hospice is perceived to be a place to go and die. And with our understanding and belief is we should try everything to live.
Yeah.
That's why hospital, we always take people to hospital, but when the terminal illness comes to an end, what you're doing is you're hurting that person by putting more needles. So the need for a discussion and to have a Muslim-friendly hospice needs to happen with the Muslim community.
Yes.
If I give you an example, if I list you 15 end-of-life services in Tower Hamlets or in Newham, all of them are going to be mainstream, non-Muslim organizations. The only small one, and we're not even small, we're not even on the map, is Eden Care. And we don't even exist, we're just a little something. But if you go to the strategic forum where decisions are being made for those 1,200 residents of Newham who die every year, or 1,000 at times, or 1,200 residents of Tower Hamlets die, of which half of them are Muslims, where is our representation at the end of life strategic forums? We do not have any representation. You may say, oh, we have Muslim staff members. They're part of the mainstream. They're part and parcel of the mainstream. We need to have independent organizations or businesses that represents 100% the will of the community. For example, just the last one, I'll just
I was going to give you a question.
So Jewish Care, for example, their outfit, let's take examples from our cousins. They have private ambulances free, so that they could take the elderly people from one appointment to another appointment and then bring them back. What do the Muslim community have? Zero. Because we don't take interest in end of life. Oh, the family will do it. They also have Jewish Care. All the elderly, they could go daycare, overnight stay. What do we have? We do not take interest. And at times, I spoke to the former chairman of Hospice UK. His view is Muslims, we have extended family and we're not interested in end of life and we don't want to engage.
That's not right.
And I said to him, that's not right.
That's not right.
And we do want to engage and we do want to work with you, and you need to put resources in to support and take these work forward.
The perception that some of these so-called bodies have about Muslim communities and Muslim families is somewhat misguided, because we are part and parcel and fabric of the community. We move in the same way as other communities move. We do not have this nuclear family set up nowadays. It's very rare to find that you have a support mechanism within your own community.
Also, I mean, if you think about it, that we don't have the experience of how to look after a terminally ill person, or someone who's had, say, a sudden, has had, had a brain injury. We're not experienced to do that. We don't have the experience. So to say, well, we've got an extended family. Well, we don't actually we don't have the experience within our family. And it's not just a Muslim thing, nor does a non-Muslim family have that. So for the NHS to think that, well, actually, you look after your, at home, at own, is madness, really.
It's a misnomer. Going back to your point, going to these strategic levels that make the decision-making powers that are in existence with end-of-life care strategies, who from our community should be sitting in those kind of boards, decisions, where decisions are being made? Should it be community leaders? Should it be faith leaders? Should it be Joe Bloggs or an Abu Mumin or a Hasina Zaman? Who should it be?
We should have.
Who's representing us?
At the moment,
Nobody.
nobody.
But should it be?
And this is the question I asked. I used to belong, as I said, social work. I'm part of the mainstream. And now, what should happen, you should have external bodies. So, for example, the mosques, end-of-life organizations, care agencies, so that the service user gets the best outcome.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there are only a few, because at the moment it's monopolized. So you guys are not interested. So the people who attend are St. Joseph's, Richard House, Age UK. These are national multi-million pound. I mean, how can organizations like Eden Care compete? But we need to have a voice, because there are 250,000 Muslims who are going by the year 2030, and there are policy issues that we need to inform, we need to help and be part of the planning.
Yes.
Let's say now this is a problem, but I think there isn't a will from imams and mosques. They have too much to do and a lot of other issues that they got to handle. So we've got to have specialist organizations like Eden Care that focuses around end of life, burial, and advocacy to represent and sit. We've always said we're happy, but it's a private club at the moment.
Let's take a bit of a break for the moment. You're listening to Revive FM. The studio number is 0333 444 0940. If you want to call in and give us your questions, we're on Facebook Live. Our website is revivefm.co.uk. So after the break, we'll be coming back to further some of the discussions in terms of some of the long-term issues relating to this. We're going to talk about what both organisations have to offer. We will go back to the issue around hospices, and also we will touch on Grenfell, because Grenfell was something that one of the shows that I did a couple of years ago was actually at the time of when Grenfell was unravelling, and there's a lot of things that came out of Grenfell which we're still trying to get to the bottom of in terms of coping with bereavement. I think the bereavement around Grenfell still exists. So let's come back to the show. You're listening to the Community Health Show with Abdul Malik, your host. We'll be back after the commercial break.
رب صل رب سلم على طه المعلم نبع خير شمس حق من السماء. You're the light of my eyes, you're the answer to my cries, you're the dawn that chased away my darkest night. وإن لم أراك يا حبيبي عين روحي دوما تراك نور من الله كي يضيء لنا الحياة. يا حبيب قلبي يا محمد يا إمام دربي يا أحمد يا شفيع ذنبي يا طه عليك صلى الله. يا حبيب قلبي يا محمد يا إمام دربي يا أحمد يا شفيع ذنبي يا طه عليك صلى الله. فاض شوقي كي أراك سأل دمعي للقاك في جنان الخلد نلحق بخطاك. I will cross the widest sea, I will climb the highest mountain just to drink from your hand by the fountain. ومن سواك يا حبيبي قدوة، من لي سواك نور من الله كي يضيء لنا الحياة. يا حبيب قلبي يا محمد، يا إمام دربي يا أحمد، يا شفيع ذنبي يا طه، عليك صلى الله. يا حبيب قلبي يا محمد، يا إمام دربي يا أحمد، يا شفيع ذنبي يا طه، عليك صلى الله. يا إمام دربي يا أحمد، يا شفيع ذنبي يا طه، عليك صلى الله. يا حبيب قلبي يا محمد، يا إمام دربي يا أحمد، يا شفيع ذنبي يا طه، عليك صلى الله.
We were given so many prizes. We changed the desert into oasis. We built buildings of different lengths and sizes, and we felt so very satisfied. We bought and couldn't stop buying. We gave charity to the poor 'cause we couldn't stand the crying. We thought we paid our dues, but in fact to ourselves we're just lying. Oh, I'm walking with my head lowered in shame for my place. I'm walking with my head lowered for my race. Yes, it's easy to blame everything on the West, when in fact our focus should be on ourselves. I'm walking with my head lowered in shame for my place. I'm walking with my head lowered for my race. Yes, it's easy to blame everything on the West, when in fact our focus should be on ourselves. We were told what to buy and we bought. We went to London, Paris and Costa del Sol. We made sure we were seen in the most exclusive shops. Yes, we felt so very satisfied. We felt our money gave us infinite power. We forgot to teach our children about history and honor. We didn't have any time to lose when we were so busy feeling so satisfied. I'm walking with my head lowered in shame for my place. I'm walking with my head lowered for my race. Yes, it's easy to blame everything on the West, when in fact our focus should be on ourselves. I'm walking with my head lowered in shame for my place. I'm walking with my head lowered for my race. Yes, it's easy to blame everything on the West, when in fact our focus should be on ourselves. We became individuals without a soul. Despite the heat, our homes felt so empty and cold. To feel the emptiness we bought and bought, maybe all the fancy cars and bling will make us feel satisfied. My dear brother and sister, it's time to change inside. Open your eyes, don't throw away what's right aside, before the day comes when there's nowhere to run and hide. Now ask yourself, 'cause Allah's watching you. Is it satisfied? Is Allah satisfied? Is Allah satisfied? Is Allah satisfied?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the Community Health Show on Ramadan revivefm.co.uk. We are broadcasting live on Facebook and on YouTube. We're also on revivefm.co.uk. The studio number is 0333 444 0940. So we've reached the last segment of the show. This is your opportunity to call in and ask about anything to do with end-of-life care and bereavement, and also your opportunity to share some of your personal experiences. Why not call in, be bold, be brave, and call in and tell us about how you dealt with and how you came to terms with a personal family member and their death. What went through your mind? You know, it's important to understand how people think and how people cope. And if you do call in, you'll be serving humanity, because you'll be sharing your personal story with somebody, and it might resonate with them, and it might think, oh, I'm not the only one. We're all going through the same thing. So do it, be bold and call in. You don't have to mention your name, just call in. You can be anonymized, and you can drop it some Facebook comments in as well. So our live stream is going out. So going back to end of life care, we understand that aftercare support is very much vital, and the projection. What was the projection you just mentioned during the break, Abdul Malik, about the rise in the number of deaths and the costs associated with burials?
Okay, I talked about the cost of burial. Muslim burial is within the Muslim ground, whether they are business or charities. What's happening is they're increasing the burial cost by in line with inflation and more. And that means if, for example, every year £200-300 gets added on with inflation and the land value, and then I mentioned to you that if there's going to be 250,000 Muslims by the year 2030 who are going to be over the age of 65, and that life expectancy is around let's say 70-80 years of age, you're going to have a huge number of Muslims going, they'll be passing away, and the cost of land at that time, we're looking at £8,000 to £10,000 for a burial, a Muslim burial. And I've said to you, in the UK, in the year 1969, that's when half of the population had burial and other half had cremation. In 1969, it tipped. So currently, the current cremation rate in the UK, as of now, stands at 78%. We don't know what the situation with the Muslims in terms of cremation and burial, but what I can say to you, I have dealt with cases within the Muslim community that they have considered cremation. Now, if the burial costs are going up to 8 to 10,000, if we don't start saving now, if we don't have a saving plan, the following options could happen. You have a burial for 8 to 10,000 pounds, or you send the body back to your home country, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, or some people who they may not be as strong in the Islamic faith, they could consider cremation. So something needs to be done. This is a disaster that is waiting to happen, and that's where we are from Eden Care. We're trying to campaign to lower the funeral burial cost and make it affordable, and we're trying to put together a saving program, but in line with regulations. That within different communities they have private burial clubs, in different towns and cities, but we need to have a national one where it's compulsory, everyone contributing. Otherwise, we're heading towards a disaster.
Okay. Hasina, with Compassionate Funerals, you offer a number of different services in terms of bespoke funeral services to match up with the demands that are placed upon us. Is there anything that you can do in terms of raising the awareness around the options available to people and the variety of funeral plans. We need to talk about funeral plans.
So I would always say that where possible, go and invest. It is an investment of a funeral plan.
Yeah.
You pay now, you die later. I know it's like
Pay
a
now,
cliche.
die later.
So at least that you're not leaving your family in a state of financial depletion, or you're not your family. You're leaving you peace of mind. That's the main thing that you invest when you invest in a funeral plan.
Is that the same as life insurance?
It's similar. It's similar because they all pay out. But with the funeral,
but life insurance is not halal.
Yeah.
From what I understand, and from what most people would not.
Well,
would prefer not to put money into life insurance policies.
But again, a lot of people don't realise this. But when you work for a big company or you work for a local authority, as part of your pension, there's an attachment that is called the death in service grant. That actually covers. It's not just the funeral costs, but that money goes towards the family. That's a one-off payment. It's similar to a life insurance, and lots of people have this, but they don't know it. So go back and check what you have and what you don't have. And if you don't have a funeral plan, a prepaid funeral plan, invest in one. And if you're very clear about in terms of where you definitely want to be buried, you can do something called a pre-purchase grave. You can buy that grave now, and then the years start once it's used. So you can buy. You do pay a slightly bit more for it. There is a slightly, about £2,000 more or £1,500 more. Not always. Every single cemetery is very different. So if you're very clear that you definitely want to, be buried in this particular grave, then I would say, if possible, and if it allows it, then go and do a pre-purchase grave. Buy the grave in advance. So that's number 2. The other. In terms of bespoking our service, every single funeral is bespoke towards the person who's passed away, in terms of to reflect of who they were, in terms of this what they did while they were alive, not necessarily to do with their death. So that's what I mean bespoking, and I could really go into that, but I won't. We've just started offering. We're going to start running a monthly bereavement. We're going to be starting running a monthly bereavement support group at Wanstead Library. Starts next Monday, actually, and in fact, from Monday for 2 weeks next week, it's National Dying Matters Awareness Week. So up and down the country, there's going to be this program is actually very timely, and you're actually ahead of your time. So. So we're going to be because we've seen a gap in our service, and we've been doing lots of death cafes, and people, even with the word death cafe, people don't like that. So we've decided to call ourselves
a death cafe.
So a death cafe is a bit like
worrying.
It's not worrying, but it's exactly what we're doing here. We're talking about death, dying.
In people's coffees or something.
No, we don't kill anybody. We just literally discuss. We make it easier to explore the issues, because as Abdul Malik said, is that it helps us to awaken our senses to this subject, and this something that we're all going to experience, if not the experience, death of a loved one, but our own death. So that's what Death Cafe is. So anyway. Side to that, we're launching a bereavement support group from next Monday. And also, coming back to what Abdul Malik said, every single local authority, I know in the East London area, because this is where we specialise in, they have bereavement support. So for Tower Hamlets Newham, it's actually commissioned by Mind. And people can, if you live in Tower Hamlets or Newham, you can go and access bereavement services. They also offer non-counselling services like music, art therapy, Reiki, massage, holistic therapies. So, and then for Hackney, it's I believe it's St Joseph's who've got that work, and who've got the commission for that. And in Redbridge, so Age UK has got that. In Waltham Forest, it's St Margaret's Centre, which is based in Whips. It's the hospice. They're not hospice, but it's called St Margaret's Centre. So there are these services there. But I have to say, I attended a strategic group last week at Waltham Forest, and even people within there, they didn't know. I'm the one who sits on the outside, runs a private entity.
They didn't know about it.
Yeah, and the reason why I've got myself become aware of it is so we have to signpost those families. You know,
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
people
yeah.
say, well, where do we go? And we haven't got any finances, you know, that's because even to get bereavement service from your GP counselling, you have to wait at least 6 weeks. Some people can't. They can't sleep. That's one of the biggest signs after the funeral. People can't physically sleep. They're
It's a dire
just
state
like,
of affairs
Yeah.
when it's you guys that are signposting people to mainstream offers, whereas you're not getting a look in terms of having a say.
It's a very. I'm glad that Hasina has gone because
Go on, what do you mean?
I mean, has attended that meeting.
yeah.
Because people are coming to organisations like Compassionate Funerals, like Eden Care, because there is a gap. They don't feel the needs have been met. So the mainstream, they really need to engage. Some of the organizations you mentioned, they're national organizations. We're more localized, the local context. And these forums are local forums, but inviting national organizations, which are providing a good service, but they need to have local voice.
Yeah.
And that's the most disappointing thing about it all. I mean, I know what people would do in terms of bereavement or end-of-life support. They'll be isolated, and they'll probably do their own thing and not take part in all the support that is out there. There is a lot of support, by the way. There is a lot of support,
Definitely.
but it's not being taken up by the Muslim community. Yeah.
What do we need to do to kick backsides to get people to?
Well, I think
about
the
this?
leadership.
Yes.
I mean, when they tried to take off my mother's clothes, I had contacts within the Ba'ath's. I knew the Ba'ath's chair, and immediately contacted them, and took direct action. Not everyone has that sort of access, and we need to have. You know, it's not there's a saying, no mama magna kharbar. Yeah, there shouldn't be, there should be good policies with good representation, with good opinions being expressed by the local specialist agencies in this area. And then we're looking at hoping we can help those communities a bit further.
Okay. I'd like to remind everybody this is the Community Health Show on Revive FM 94 FM. We'd welcome your calls. I'm hoping that somebody would be calling in towards the last stages of the program. It'd be useful to have some discussion around the whole term of coming to terms with end-of-life care and bereavement. Let's throw back to Grenfell. The victims of Grenfell, which happened a couple of years ago, we're coming up to almost the second year anniversary. I know for a fact that Eden Care stepped in at the right time, and we supported up to 42 individuals who were part of the Grenfell deaths. This was a very harrowing experience for the whole of the country, and particularly the Muslim community, because 70% of that building, 70% of the residents represented our community, did it not? It's very, very, it's a distressing thing to not only witness, but to see the families and how they have coped with lack of access, lack of support, lack of care and due diligence, and also no follow through. When I did my show 2 years ago, I had a guest on who was a trauma specialist from Inspirited Minds. Inspirited Minds are a Muslim, culturally appropriate service for people who have got mental health and trauma. And Rahma Counselling was the lady that came along was from Rahma Counselling, and we were in the midst of Grenfell and what was happening. And we needed people to go down on site, not only to offer food and clothing, but to offer assistance, offer spiritual and services and mental health support as well. Therapists that came in to talk about the whole issue around coming to terms with the loss, such tragic loss. So, Eden Care, what did you guys do at the time?
We were on a TV appeal, and then we were discussing our work, and then we learnt about the fire, and immediately many of us went to the scene because it was TV show ending and the fire, and there and then we thought, oh my God, that there's going to be people not coming out of there. And there and then we said, look, the only thing that we can do as a small charity is if anybody needs our help with burial help, we will help them. And immediately we've contacted all our partners, including Compassionate Funerals, saying, look, you need to give us a subsidized or free service, free burial ground, free service. These people need to be helped. And we made that announcement there and then. We were thinking we'd probably get 1 or 2 burials. But from the starting of making the announcement to the end, we've as an organization, we worked with all our partners on behalf of the community, the wider community, on behalf of the Muslim community. We buried 42 of the Grenfell fire victims. It was very, very intense, that piece of work. We got very close to many of the family members that we worked with, and in terms of the burial planning of their loved one, we supported them. And there are a lot of issues.
You had to enlist the support of a lot of volunteers, didn't you?
We had to.
How did you equip the volunteers to kind of like be ready and prepared for some of this work?
It was at times we had burial in one funeral ground and then burials in another funeral ground, and then we're assessing another burial. It was, as a small outfit, one of the problems we were realizing that will our volunteer base, will they get affected?
Yes.
And we try to run support groups. I mean, we haven't done any we're a small organization. We haven't done any national disaster work, whereas we were finding ourselves that we were doing that work. We were finding ourselves that we were dealing with deep trauma issues with each of the family. We became very close to their family members. The first case, the Hajjadi family, our volunteers, 3 of our volunteers were the only ones involved with the washing process. The family, they felt that was very difficult. And the father turned around and said, I'm indebted. I've never been in debt to anyone, but you guys, what you've done for my son, I mean, I cannot forget this. Others were sharing harrowing, graphic experience, conversation that they were having with their children, with their wife, moments before they were passing. He was, and there is, I think, this is one area, a lot of, I mean, what we've taken the lion's share of the burial, but we ourselves, we've identified, we did a report on this, getting testimonies from our volunteers and the Grenfell families as well.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot more could have been done. For some families are still suffering, and a lot more should have been done. And I think, it's sad what those families had to endure. And we only can say that we did those burials on behalf of the community, the Muslim community. And alhamdulillah, we're still in touch. We had we gifted something special to all the families in a form of an art canvas, and we wrote down their family members' names on those canvases. So those things were really appreciated. Hasina, you were involved with some of the Grenfell burials. Maybe you could. One of them. we dealt with was who was a non-Muslim who we
Both
buried.
of them, yeah.
Yeah.
The two families we did the funeral for were both for non-Muslims, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, although I did go to the scene a few times, to the site a few times, like during the course of the first few months. But in terms of dealing with the actual two families directly, I have to say, when you first called us, I just didn't think that we had the backbone to do this type of work. But it's, again, like you said, you haven't had disaster training, and we haven't, we had had no experience of this. And then I just, whenever I experience something like this, I think of that verse where in Surah Baqarah where it says, Allah doesn't give you anything you can't bear. And so I thought, okay, time to get, roll your sleeves up and get your hands working. And it was the first family, because you were all very so involved. There were lots of volunteers that we were working with when we were arranging the funeral and the actual funeral, the process. I think that that young member, the son, he'd gone through he'd had quite a lot of support. For me, he seemed very, very stable and very neutral, and I would even say healthy. He'd almost accepted, came to terms with the situation. He seemed like that anyway. Whereas in the second family we dealt with, because it was a larger family, there were much more conflicts. So, for example, the person who passed away, the father, there was no identification. The bodies could not be identified. So we had issues, families saying that, well, we want to see. And we said, we can't, this is under coroner's instructions. The bodies will have to go straight into a coffin, and from and then the coffin is sealed. And from that, you can spend some time with a closed coffin. So that's what I'm saying, that we really have to sensitively realize what is required, what the family is asking, and can we appropriately provide what they're asking. And so at times we have to say, look, this is what's appropriate. So in terms of the funeral that took place, the funeral happened in a church, and then there was a burial. But it was and that was actually the last funeral. So, and in a way it was a bit harrowing going to the coroners and to collect this person, because it was almost December that we were doing the funeral, and the death took place in July. Is it July or June? July the 14th, wasn't it? Yeah. So it was we're talking 5 months. There was 5 months. So there was a specially created coroner's team that was pulled from around the country to actually investigate and to care and to look into this whole incident. So, even that I've never experienced. Normally, coroners never come and, have any relationship with you. You just deal with mortuary stuff and that's it. But they were so heavily involved with what had happened. They even came to say goodbye and to see us off, and it was very endearing and heartwarming. And I really felt their pain. I really felt their sadness, that they'd been working day and night around the situation.
I have to mention Minhaj Welfare Foundation. The guys were led a couple of years ago. The guys here actually pulled together, got a group of individuals who are involved in the Idara and Minhajul Quran, and sent them down to Grenfell. So I just wanted to mention that Minhajul Quran did play a vital role in supporting some of the work on the ground. So it's not that we dismiss that. You absolutely were part and parcel of the work, and I congratulate all the work that they've done through some of the outreach and using the radio station as a platform. So duly acknowledged that you did that work. So, and Grenfell now, we are going to be almost 2 years on. So all these families that you came across, do they have access to Eden Care services? Can they still come in and get support from you?
They could, whether we are ready for that, because we are a small organization, and we've proven that with something like Grenfell we could deliver a quality service that the families appreciated. I don't know about if the government or anybody else appreciated it or not, but we are persons centered.
Yes.
That's our model of work, and we get our instructions from the families. And I have to say the Muslim community in general played a very big role in terms of providing the emergency assistance, the long-term support. What Al Manar is doing now,
yes,
is the ongoing
Thank you for
work.
reminding me of that.
We have to, and everybody set aside their differences and came together with GMRU at the lead. I had hoped.
What's GMRU?
Grenfell Muslim Response Unit.
Okay.
I personally was hoping they would continue, because in my view there was a scope for them to continue. To the support services, however, I mean, Al Manar, which is based, the Muslim Heritage Center, which is based near the Grenfell fire, the building, they are still continuing the work with some of the big charities. So that needs to be noted for what we've done. And of course, our volunteers, we have to thank all the 60 to 70 of them who've given up their time, their energy, their money to really help with this noble cause. And like we said, we will maintain a relationship with as many of the family members as possible.
Okay.
But it's going to, in terms of bereavement, it's tough. You know, you need proper, solid people who can offer good, compassionate support.
We're coming up to the last 10 minutes or so of the show. What I want to focus us on now is what we see in the future. What's the future of funeral services as we move along? We know that there's going to be a lot of pressures placed upon communities and funding available. Also, I want you both to give up some offers in terms of what Eden Care and Compassionate Funerals would like to offer our communities. So let me just touch on this question here. How do you think funeral services will change over the next 10 years? You know, we talk about celebration of life, secular, cultural differences, and we've gone cross generations, over 2-3 generations now. So how will things change? Question that's actually to you first.
Was a brilliant question, and the reason why it's already changing is because young people are now playing a significant role in terms of organising and arranging their family members' funeral, and often they can be second, third generation, and what we're seeing is that people want to have the religious service, and they still want to do it within the time frame, like to bury as soon as possible. But people are wanting to have some type of a memorial service, and so what I think that's going to happen is once the burial services happen, people are going to have a memorial service or a gathering after to have a remembrance service for that person who's passed away, so they can reflect, because with the janaza and the ghusl and the burial, it being so expedited because of religious requirements.
Yes.
What there isn't time, like in so in the non-Muslim funeral, it's the other way around. You had the memorialization, you had the remembrance of the person in the service, because it can be anywhere between 30 minutes to 2 hours, depending on the length and type of funeral. So I think in terms of funerals, this is what's going to happen, is that young people are wanting to have some. Like I did a funeral for a young person who died a couple of weeks ago, and his family really just wanted to go somewhere straight after the burial and just meet and gather with people and have some food and talk. That's a very particular cultural practice within the non-Muslim community. So that's definitely one. So young people and people wanting a much more a remembrance service after the funeral. But in terms of looking to the future, as what Abdul Malik said, is that we need to really start to be involved at a strategic level. You know, the Muslim community, there are lots and lots of gaps. There are lots and lots of weaknesses in the service, and until those are addressed, unless Muslims are themselves are involved in those decision-making, changing process, it's not going to happen. It's going to just stay the way they are. And even as a Muslim, if you work for the mainstream, you're pretty much being told what to do. You know, you can't really say, for example, like, you know, listen, you can't, you know, like that modesty, you know, it's one of the most simplest things within our faith, within our culture, that level of modesty. And it's also universal. You know, if that is not almost regulated within the care provision, it's just going to go, you know, people are still going to be traumatized knowing that, oh, they didn't do this, or they didn't do that, and this has happened, or, you know, like what I hear is that, you know, sometimes families come up to us and say, well, we think they got killed. And I said, well, actually, this is quite serious. You need to go and have this conversation. Take this further. There is a complaints procedure. You need to go and talk to PALS. There are organisations. But instead of me, little, like Abdul Malik was saying, you know, us, tiny little organisation, it has to be a top-down change. And it has to be, Muslims have to be involved from the community, not just from the mosques and, you know, and older generations, but young people, because they are the ones who are going to have to access these services on behalf of their family.
Can I be a bit ambitious and bold and to say, if Minhajul Quran would offer a platform, could we have some kind of consultation around end-of-life care here?
Absolutely.
More than
Would you
happy.
welcome that?
Yeah.
More than happy.
Whoever's listening out there from the Idara, I think over the past, when it has come to health, you've embraced health in a very progressive way, and you've tackled things head on, which is one of the reasons why I've still ended up being part and parcel of the fabric of Minhajul Quran. And I want to be progressive with this, in terms of, this is a subject matter that we've tackled head on today. I think we've given it due justice. I think we've given it ample airtime. It's what happens after. Revive FM is here to stay. It's not a flash in the pan. And I think one of the things that we need to advocate through these kind of programs is a commitment to coming back to what we've covered and having a discussion around it. And I think this is something which is vital. Death remains. It will never go away. It's something we will all have to face up to in the not so near future. We can't afford to dismiss it.
No,
Absolutely.
and then
not.
that is part of the health conversation. Part of
So,
the, you know, living
I want to
healthy
put it out there
is to have
to the
healthy
mosque leaders, particularly from this institution. We need to have a consultation around end-of-life care. We need to embrace our communities. We need to ask people who come to this institution to step up, tell us your story, tell us your fears and concerns, what went wrong. I think invariably things go wrong as opposed to go right. Let us share some of those things. So, you know, we've got literally a few minutes.
Can I just tell you a story of
Yes,
a girl called Rose?
Yes.
Her mum died. She was in local authority care, and she had terminal illness. And we're talking about a 10-year-old. Now, this is a Muslim girl in non-Muslim foster care agencies, and hardly any access to the Muslim community. Now, what we need to do, we need to look after our young, our old.
We have a caller. Okay, let's take that caller. Let's take that caller.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Revive FM. Abdul Malik speaking. Who am I speaking to?
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's Maulana Yunus here from...
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. You've literally caught us in the last 5 minutes. So please espouse your opinions upon end-of-life care and bereavement. Maulana Yunus Dudwala is a regular guest on the show. He's head of bereavement services at Bart's Health. So over to you, Sheikh.
Well, I mean, it's something which we, from the hospital side, the chaplaincy looks after many who are at the end of life. And what we're finding more and more is that more people need support. Sometimes they're, because of the loneliness that we're finding that is increasing within our communities. and sometimes it's because they don't know what to do at the end of life, whether it's what to do in terms of religion, what to do practically.
Yes.
So all these different issues come up for us in supporting families at the end of life, and we're in a very privileged position to be able to support them, to give them advice, and to help them at the most critical time, especially for families who are suffering the bereavement.
You know, we've come to towards the end of the show. One of the things that we were talking about is how does the funeral services industry support our communities in a proactive and positive way? One of the things that we've decided amongst the three of us is we need to have more dialogue, we need to have more consultation, and Minhaj al-Quran, I think, will offer a platform for this. What do you see as somebody from within the health service? What do you need from our communities to come forward to tell you how to tailor some of the services that are out there, and how you can best support individuals who come to you for spiritual guidance around bereavement? What do you want from our communities, Sheikh?
I think we've got to realise that in London, especially, for funeral services are costing a lot of money, and that's the reality.
Yes.
And I think people need to be aware of that before the inevitable happens. People need to be prepared for that.
Yes.
And whether we can provide something which is a cheaper option,
yes,
for the normal Ahmed, Muhammad, Zainab, Aisha, whoever it is out there, that would be a great service to the community, because at the end of the day, it's costing a lot of money. You're looking at least £4,000, £5,000 per funeral. Yeah, so, and it's something which, if we can help mitigate those or lessen that burden on people,
yes,
then that will be a really amazing gift to the community.
Okay, so would you welcome the notion of having some kind of dialogue and discussion around end-of-life care and bereavement in a culturally appropriate setting in the very near future?
Yeah.
Okay.
That should happen, but yeah.
Okay. If there's nothing else that you'd like to add, I'd just like to thank you for calling in. We appreciate your call. Jazakallah khairan.
Yeah, no,
look forward to seeing you sometime during the Ramadan period. Assalamu alaikum.
Inshallah.
Okay, that was our esteemed Sheikh Maulana Yunus Dudwala, who most of you know from Bart's Health, who called in. So we've actually come to the end of the show. So even if I wanted to ask you to tell us more, I think what we will do is we will make sure that information around Eden Care and compassionate funerals will be available through the...
Can we not get 20 seconds?
Yes, you can. I'll let you have this. I'm just saying, you will get your information on our social media, inshallah. So
inshallah.
There will be opportunity. But 2 offers from you both. Hasina first. What offer do you have for the community from compassionate funerals?
So the offer is call us.
Yes.
Call us with any questions.
What's
Call
your
us
number?
with any concern. 0208 989 0493.
Well,
call us with anything that you have, any concerns, and we have a small team, and we will be more than that'd be more than a privilege.
What's your website address?
It's Compassionate Funerals with an S. .co.uk.
Okay. Eden Care, Abu Mu'min.
Okay, what we want is people to engage with us,
yes,
get involved with us. There is a lot that needs to be done. We need a lot of skills. We're going to be on Channel S on Sunday from 5 p.m. to 4 a.m. until Fajr. You can watch us and know more about Eden Care. We're going to have our service users, our partners, volunteers, everybody. So it's going to be on Channel S, Sky 734, I think.
Okay.
Or if you can't do that, just look at our website, www.edencareuk. You just showed me something. It's www.edencareuk. Sorry?
You need more heroes.
We need more heroes. So it's www.edencareuk.com, or go into our Facebook, Eden Care UK, Instagram, Eden Care UK.
Yep. Okay. All right, I'd like to conclude the show. We're literally at 4 o'clock. Jazakallah khairan, Hasina Zaman, Chief Executive Officer of Compassionate Funerals. Thank you very much, Abu Mu'min, founder member of Eden Care. Jazakallah khairan for your valuable time. I really appreciate that you've come along and to talk about such a sensitive issue. May Allah reward you for your work. May Allah give you barakah to continue and sustain the work. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Jazakallah khairan. We're signing out from Revive FM on revivefm.co.uk, the Community Health Show. We will be here every Friday from 2 to 4. Inshallah, join us. There will be more information available through Revive FM on Facebook. If you have anything that you would like to talk about around community health, please feed that into the station through Facebook, if you would. Jazakallah khairan. Signing off, Abdul Malik from Revive FM. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.